Hello and welcome to the Battle Wagon. I'm back with another Star Wars Unlimited video, this time for part 2 of my series on Turn 1 plays where I talk about ground units. There are 38 ground units from set 1 that cost 1 or 2 resources. Ignoring Han's leader ability and including the 12 space units, that's 50 possible Turn 1 plays. I'm going to evaluate these ground units based on their stats, ability to affect board state, what leaders they synergize with, and any special abilities. The primary evaluation, however, will be on how well these units trade or resist trading. Lastly, for certain cards, I'll try to talk about how initiative matters when considering these units. Please note that while it is officially called hit points, I find it easier to say health. I'll go through these cards in order of power and then toughness, which has me starting at Cantina Braggart, which is a regenerative alien called Abyssin. Its low power is offset by having a cost of 1 and raid 2. Once it hits the board, your opponent can freely attack it without repercussion. It has the Underworld trait, which might be useful in the future. You'll probably only see this card in aggressive deck, trying to flood the board wide with multiple ground units, but even then, it falls short of most units and is likely to be resourced. Coming in with the lowest combined stats of any ground unit, Admiral Motti has 1 power and 1 health. As a turn 1 play, you gain no benefit from his special ability, and he provides little more than a speed bump to your opponent's plans. His primary purpose is to die, most likely when you have a powerful villainy unit that can be readied, typically for a big swing at their base. Popular setups include any of the Sith villains or Star Destroyers. Notably, because he is an Imperial official, he can be safe 1-turn drop when followed up with the 3-drop Sentinels like Emperor's Royal Guard, Cellblock Guard, or even the upcoming Phase 3 Dark Troopers. The next set of units are all 1 power, 2 health. The Alliance Dispatcher, Bail Organa, and Vanguard Infantry are each command units that deploy for only 1 resource. Their low stats means they trade poorly, but 2 of these units are heroic, meaning that when paired with leader Luke Skywalker, they can gain a shield on turn 1. Each of them has their own unique abilities. The Dispatcher lets you play a unit from hand for 1 less cost, which can be a great way to enable a turn 2 skiff escort ambush, Sentinel Patrolcraft to slow down Space Swarm, or any of the other 4-cost units. Bail Organa gives an experience token to any friendly unit, not just rebels, which can buff your turn 2 drop like a Star Viper, Yoda, or maybe a Cloud City Wingguard. Lastly, the Vanguard Infantry is a trooper that lets you give an experience token to another unit when it dies. The only viable use for this card seems to be an aggressive villainy deck based on trooper spam. Perhaps it will see more play once Moff Gideon arrives. There are 3 units with 1 power and 3 health. This stat line loses when trading with most other units on this list. Luckily, they have just enough health to provide you with decent utility abilities. 2-1B heals another unit when it attacks, but unfortunately, it is only Vigilance and can't get a shield from leader Luke. The Rebel Droid Chopper, however, can receive a turn 1 Luke shield. He has the added benefits of Raid 1 when you control another Spectre, and also mills your opponent's deck with a chance to mess up their play tempo by exhausting a resource. Finally, the ISB agent appears to be the most played of these 3 units. He is one of the few ways to ping a unit, which can be seen combined with Tarkin Town for some cheap, targeted removal. Its 1-3 stat line often goes ignored, allowing you the opportunity to play a pirated starfighter. There are 2 units with 1 power and 3 health, and cost 2. Again, these units trade poorly, but can sneak under the radar of your opponent in favor of base damage. First up is Bib Fortuna, which is an Underworld unit that enters play shielded. His strength lies in the ability to exhaust him as an action in order to play an event from your hand at 1 less cost. Notably, this enables Search Your Feelings, take down on a priority 2-2 target like Boba Fett, or even the upcoming Calculated Lethality to stop most turn 1 and 2 drops. Mon Mothma is a rebel that lets you replace her card by fetching another rebel from the top 5 cards of your deck. While she herself is vulnerable, this is a great way to set up a favorable turn 2 trade with Fleet Lieutenant or Wing Leader, or prepare your hand for future turns. There is a single unit with 1 power and 4 health that costs 1, R2-D2. With 4 health, he will survive an attack from any turn 1 unit, barring no outside influences. As a Rebel Droid Heroism unit costing 1 resource, he is eligible for a shield from Leader Luke. Unfortunately, this means you will rarely have initiative going into turn 2, and must play reactively. Maybe you're into that sort of thing. His when played and on-attack Scry ability lets you curate your draws for future turns, or set up cards like C-3PO or You're My Only Hope. I challenge you to drop a turn 2 5-cost unit just 1 time and you'll be hooked. Wedge, Callus, and Chewbacca are a few of my favorites. The best part, however, about this card is his subtitle, Ignoring Protocol, which is absolutely hilarious. There are 5 units at 1 power, 4 health, with just 2 cost. Just like R2-D2, they resist trades while providing utility. First up is Admiral Piet. He has the ever-important Imperial trait, and is an official for activating Sentinel on the Emperor's Royal Guard. While Piet may not seem threatening, if he is not defeated, your late-game units all gain ambush. He might even be a decent unit to pull with Vader. While your opponent is reeling from Vader's ambush, you set yourself up for a Reinforcement Walker, Emperor Palpatine unit, Chimera, or even Gideon's new cruiser. C-3PO has the Rebel tag, making him eligible for all of those shenanigans. He also lets you draw a card if you know your deck well enough, or have even set it up. I think the Partisan Insurgent is a little stronger than people give him credit for. He is a Rebel Trooper, meaning that his 1/4 stat line lets him survive long enough to utilize his traits and or conditional raid ability. You'll find him in aggressive red decks, and notably, he can be used as a setup to trigger Cassian's leader ability card draw. Finally, the Regional Governor is an Imperial official that prevents key card plays by your opponent and can be vital throughout the game. This is one of the few ways to shut down ramp cards like Super Laser Technician. And playing her late game can hilariously stop the likes of Darth Vader from ambushing you, forcing your opponent to deal with her first. Her 1/4 stat line lets her survive long enough for you to set up buffs. In fact, I love dropping Entrenched on turn 2 to crush my opponent's early game units, especially pesky Rebel droids. The Scout Bike Pursuer is an Imperial Trooper with some damage versatility due to the grit keyword. He trades well against Greedo or Stormtroopers and pairs well with Death Troopers and or Grand Inquisitor. He makes an appearance in several Vigilance decks. Moving up to units with 2 power, there are 2 units with 1 health. While they die to a stiff breeze, both of the units have Saboteur, which can be a great way to trade with Crafty Smuggler or attack the base directly. The Jawa Scavenger only costs 1, and its traits of Fringe and Jawa don't currently do anything. At this time, it is unlikely to appear in any competitively viable decks. The Jedha Agitator is a rebel that costs 2 with a conditional on attack that deals damage to a unit or base. It appears in a few aggression decks as filler, but is often one of the first cards to find itself in the resource pile. There are 2 units with 2 power and 2 health that only cost 1 resource. They will die to most units and are unlikely to trade back. Benthic 2 Tubes is a rebel trooper that seems strong on paper, but is often too fragile. He is only an aggression unit, so makes an appearance in wide villainy decks as well. On attack, he buffs another aggression unit, which can set up for some early damage. Notably, he works well as a turn 1 play with Cantina Braggart, Death Star Stormtrooper, or the next card, Spec Force Soldier, which is also a rebel trooper, but has the heroism tag in case he wants to get a shield from Leader Luke. He has some versatility if not played on turn 1, since his special ability can be clutch and bypassing a sentinel when you want to finish an opponent's base. There are 5 units at 2 power, 2 health, and 2 cost. Just like the previous units, their mediocre stat line limits their trading potential. First up is the Crafty Smuggler, which appears in quite a few Boba decks since it comes shielded. This allows it to either trade with an opponent's 3/2, or threaten a couple turns of damage. General Tag is an Imperial official, which buffs troopers with experience tokens when played. He should only be played as a desperation turn 1 play, if he's played at all. Guardian of the Wills is a fringe unit that brings the lowest cost force table to the trait. It has the added benefit of allowing your upgrades to be attached to it for 1 less. Unfortunately, with such a low stat line, it can easily be defeated before providing value. There is a case to be made about only playing this card if you have initiative or resilience, and if possible, sideboarding it out after wins. Leia Organa is a rebel official, which provides versatility in her play. As a turn 1 unit, you can ready a resource for another 1-drop or even Leader Luke's shield. Drawing her later in the game feels less bad than most other turn 1 drops because she can be used to exhaust a threatening unit, including leaders. Lastly, the Snow Trooper Lieutenant is an Imperial Trooper, which allows you to attack with another unit, even adding +2 power if it's an Imperial. When played on turn 1, you only get weak board presence, and while it provides action compression for turn 2, you would be left over with 1 resource. The Rebel equivalent is far superior. The plurality of turn 1 units have 2 power, 3 health, and 2 cost. These units have an awkward and slow trading pattern without outside intervention. For more information, see part 1 of this video where I explain the intricacies of attacking and initiative with 2-3 space units. Admiral Osbel is an Imperial official that sees a good amount of play. His ability is thematic and great if you already have initiative, since they'll have no units to ready. Trading his potential attack action to play a unit as readied can be a great way to create tempo and pressure your opponent by killing their early units. The 1st Legion Snowtrooper is an Imperial Trooper that most people regard as vanilla. However, its special ability provides +2 attack and overwhelm when attacking damaged units, and in practice has been performing better than expected. The Seasoned Shore Trooper is an Imperial Trooper with +2 attack while you control 6+ resources. You'll find it in quite a few green villainy decks, as it functions as both a decent turn 1 play and a cheap mid-game side threat. Continuing with ground units that have 2 power, 3 health, 2 cost, and a slow trade pattern, we have the Imperial official Colonel Yularen. Despite being the ISB director, he does not have the villainy trait. This is thematically interesting since he served as an admiral for the Grand Army of the Republic before transitioning to his non-martial position of colonel, where his live-action portrayal can be seen in one of my favorite shows, Andor. He only heals 1 damage from your base, which at first glance may not seem like much, but there have been many a game won or lost by 1 or 2 base health. Aggro decks will have to make a decision about killing him before he heals too much, possibly at the cost of one of their smaller units. The Rebel Pathfinder currently sees very little play. While he has Saboteur, this ability only means he can kill crafty smugglers, or avoid any of the 4 3-drop sentinels currently in the game. Sabine Wren is one of the most powerful turn 1 units in the game. She is a Mandalorian, Rebel, and Spectre, which fits into numerous decks. Her Incognito style ability can be activated mid to late game, allowing her to avoid direct attacks from enemy units. On attack, you may deal 1 damage to the defender or to the base. This means she defeats any other 2/3 in 1 attack action and trades with 3 health targets. The damage from this ability is dealt right away, so she can pick off 1 health targets before damage is dealt. Lastly, the Underworld Thug is a vanilla 2/3 that is primarily inconsequential since every aspect has plenty of turn 1 plays. There are 2 units with 3 power, 1 health, both of which cost 1. With their high attack, these units often trade card for card, possibly favoring the player who only spent 1 resource. These units are cheap and threatening if left unchecked, often being a great answer to space decks or against arena dodgers. Greedo is an Underworld bounty hunter, which may become relevant in set 2. Whomever designed Greedo needs a raise. His subtitle is slow on the draw, and that's just what he does. In his death throes, he has a chance to shoot a ground unit, even if it's your own super laser tech. The Death Star Stormtrooper is a vanilla Imperial Trooper. It packs the villainy trait, so it can be a trigger for Leader Vader's ping or Unit Vader's entourage. There are 3 units with 3 power, 2 health, all of which cost 2. These units trade well against all but the short list of 4 health turn 1 units. Just like the previous 2 units, they are threatening if left unchecked, often being a great answer to space decks or against arena dodgers. The Lothal Insurgent is a rebel, but sees relatively little play since his ability is largely inconsequential. The Imperial Viper Probe Droid, however, is a staple turn 1 play for many villain decks. It may seem obvious, but the ability to look at an opponent's hand provides invaluable knowledge to their options and plans. Wolf is a fringe clone that is neither heroism nor villainy, which is again a testament that the designers put thoughtful effort into unit depictions. Just like Yularen, Wolf fought for the Republic in the Clone Wars, but can be seen leading clones for the Empire in the Bad Batch. Then, later in the timeline, he fears that Kanan has come to take revenge and calls up the Empire on the Rebels, only to end up fighting against the Imperial AT-ATs. Wolf makes an appearance in some aggro decks, however, from what I have seen, this is usually just in the sideboard. The Battlefield Marine is a vanilla 3/3, but only costs 2 resources, and despite having no ability text, he trades better than any other turn 1 ground unit. He is a Rebel Trooper, which allows for synergies and buffs beyond the scope of any other unit. Just like the A-Wing rules of the sky, this guy might as well be king for how well he lords over the early ground arena. It's actually a little weird to me that this Rebel unit is a race called Quarren, which has typically been portrayed as antagonists. From the Battle of Mon Cala in the Clone Wars to several depictions in the Mandalorian series, Quarren don't have a great rap. In fact, maybe this little guy has something to prove, and that's why you'll see him as a staple in nearly every green heroism build. Let's just hope this isn't a depiction of the Quarren babies that were kidnapped and indoctrinated by the Mon Calamari. Yeah, it's unfortunately a thing. Look it up. Well, that's all I have for this video. Wait, who's this? As a bonus, Grogu was recently spoiled as a 2-cost unit with 0 power and 5 health. This makes him more resilient into trading than any other turn 1 unit. He has the Force trait, which enables existing and upcoming cards more reliably than the Guardian of the Whills. Set 1 Force cards don't match Cunning Heroism, so I personally like the balance of having to pick a complementary aspect. As an action, Grogu can irresistibly exhaust an enemy unit, even a leader. The design space on this ability within the confines of the game's initiative is incredibly balancing. If you have initiative and exhaust a unit, you've traded 1 action to prevent one of your opponents. Since your opponent has fewer actions available, they will likely have initiative and the opportunity to prioritize the unit's action next turn. Essentially, every other turn that Grogu is in play, his game effect value is diminished. The devs and early deck builders appear interested in buffing Grogu with lightsabers and cards like Forces With Me. This does make for a potentially powerful unit, but at the cost of not using his abilities and attaching too many upgrades to one unit. All in all, Grogu appears quite solid, and he's likely to help mold a new heroic control deck archetype. Once he hits play, he'll likely be a big target and can soak up to 5 damage in lieu of your base. It may take a couple of actions to defeat Grogu, as there are very few early 5 damage bursts, short of Force Choke or, interestingly, the Scout Bike Pursuer with Death Trooper combo. Okay, for real now, that's all I have. Have a wonderful day.